Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ad Project Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Schellerud, and today I am joined by Mr. Matt Wickland.
Hello
Matt,
there.
awesome to have you back on the podcast.
Glad to be back.
Yeah. Today we are going to talk through sponsored display and DSP. We get continual questions about the differences between the two platforms. We've covered this in a previous episode, but wanted to circle back on this one and do an update. Sponsored displays continue to launch a bunch of new features, and so we just want to walk through kind of what's the core differences between the two platforms, when to use each, which one kind of fits different use cases. But before we even go there, a key question is, when should you even start to consider either sponsored display or DSP? Or maybe we should define it first, what you can get out of it. I don't know. Which way should we go there?
Let's clarify sponsored display up front, though,
Okay.
because there are multiple types of sponsored display ad formats, right?
I
So,
like this.
yeah,
Yep.
we have audience targeting, and then we have contextual targeting or product targeting within sponsored display. And I guess this ties into what should you start with, when should you start using them. Like sponsored display product targeting within the contextual targeting category. If you're an Amazon seller, you should be using it. It's a staple ad type. It's the placement that's on product pages, typically right underneath the product description or the buy box. Um, it's a great ad placement and it pairs really well with sponsored products product targeting.
Sure. Yeah. So we've got the product targeting sponsored display ad type. And then we have other ad types where you can go more up funnel. And so we can do different audience targeting. And so it's trying to bring more people. It's continually going broader with your advertising. And so, like Matt said, product targeting with sponsored display is kind of a staple strategy that we utilize. And so, one key takeaway is if you're not using sponsored display at all, I would definitely recommend product targeting. And a really easy way to get going is to look at your sponsored product ad campaigns, see what's doing well in terms of product targets, and then just utilize those in sponsored display. So, sponsored products, they're going to show up with the carousel and the detail page. For sponsored display, they're going to show up right below the buy box. So they tend to perform pretty similarly overall if we look at like conversion rates and everything like that. So they're decently similar. So key takeaway there, sponsored display with product targeting, kind of more like sponsored products,
Yeah.
I would say, and should definitely utilize it.
And then
So,
the more comparable product to DSP that we'll be talking about today is sponsored display audience targeting versus Amazon's demand side platform.
sure. So, all right, let's walk through audience targeting and what that looks like. Maybe go through some of the different strategies, and then we can talk about if this makes sense to implement overall.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at a marketing funnel, at the top you have reach or awareness initiatives, then you have consideration where you're trying to drive engagement, whether it's click-throughs on your ads or visits to your product detail page. At the bottom of the funnel you have conversions. And sponsored display audiences line up pretty well with that funnel. At top of funnel you've got like lifestyle type audiences, in-market audiences, so interested in health and beauty or in market for vitamin B supplements. More mid funnel could be like long term views, I guess, or like a really granular in market audience that aligns really well with your product category.
Sure.
Bottom of funnel would be mostly like view based retargeting and purchase based retargeting. So people that viewed your products but have not purchased it, or people that have purchased your product that you want to reach again.
Yep.
I would say those are the major types of audiences within SD.
Yeah. So, and for those who have listened to the Ad Project podcast quite a bit, know we like to work our way up the funnel versus starting at the top and then working our way down. And so we'll kind of start from the bottom up. So, like we talked about product targeting, and this is a great tool to implement, and it's going to make sense for most sellers that are out there. Then if you work your way up a little bit more, the next would probably be retargeting. And so once somebody comes to your product detail page, they see that, now we can start showing them ads to remind them to come back and complete the purchase after the fact. And so these can be very effective ads to making sure that you're driving to the sale overall if you don't get it off of that initial view that you've had. And then if we have consumable products, now repurchases makes a lot of sense. We've talked a lot about lifetime value and trying to extend that out and make sure that we're driving as many repeat purchases as we can. So this tends to fall if you have a consumable product or if you have a really solid brand with like, different products that you can cross promote. This can be a very effective strategy overall. And then once you start working your way further up the funnel, now it's trying to engage people that may not be looking specifically for your products, but we're trying to drive them to our brand overall. And you can get really high level where you could target, say, I'll do my running shirt and shoes example. You could target people who are interested in exercise. I mean, you can get extremely broad there. And so key things as you go up the funnel, ROAS is probably going to drop over time because you're getting broader and broader, but then the impact to driving new to brand customers is usually going to get higher. Or maybe not higher, but it's going to drive more people in who wouldn't have found your products without their ads before. And so where it falls on how far you go up the funnel, it's really dependent on your product, your margins. Like if you just have margins to support the base business with trying to drive sales kind of bottom of funnel, it's not going to make sense to continually move up that funnel because as ROAS tends to decrease over time, you're not going to get a good return on your ads. But for those products that have like really high lifetime values or higher margins now working further up the funnel, this can make a lot more sense overall. And so it's really product specific in looking at your profit margins, your use case, what's the key objectives, and how far we go up the funnel and utilize these different strategies.
That's right. Yeah. So those are the like high level overview of sponsored display audiences. DSP, should we start the comp there?
Sure.
All right. So for DSP, you've still got the same marketing funnel, right? That's universal. You have a lot of the same audiences too, in market, lifestyle, demo, and then you can do view-based remarketing and purchase-based remarketing. I guess before we get into the main differentiator between DSP and sponsored display, DSP does have some additional audience types that you can reach. Those would be third-party audiences. So there's an immense amount of third-party data providers that are integrated into the Amazon DSP platform. Oracle, Experian, like the credit bureaus.
Sure.
There's some credit card companies, a whole host of different data providers that have tons of information about what people are shopping for, what they're interested in, or who they are. And you can layer those into your audiences. We'll cover that, I guess, next.
Yeah.
And then with Amazon DSP, you can also create your own audiences. So if you have a D2C site or your own website, you can place Amazon ad tags there and retarget website traffic. You can create lookalikes from your own traffic. And then you also have access to AMC, where you can create audiences too. So somebody that was served an impression from a sponsored product campaign, you can reach them via AMC audiences that you activate in the Amazon DSP.
Yeah.
So a lot of overlap for the Amazon audiences and then your own catalog for views and purchases. Yep. With a bunch of additional audience segments from third-party data providers, AMC, and your own data sets.
So this is where the confusion kind of comes into play between sponsored display and DSP, because they do there's extra audiences that you can target within DSP. If we look at some of the core base ones, there's major overlap between the two platforms and they share audience data. And so if we also look at inventory where the ads are shown, if we kind of look at just some of the base spots for inventory, you can reach a lot of the same spots with sponsored display and Amazon's DSP. And so I think some of the key pieces is when we're comparing the two platforms, sponsored display is built to be self-serve. And so it looks very similar to a sponsored product, sponsored brands when you're going in to set up the campaigns. But if we look at Amazon's DSP, a lot more control. With that comes a lot more complexity. We've covered that in previous episodes too. And so if you have not tested out any of these audiences, if you've never tested out like retargeting, sponsored display is a great spot to start. And then as you want to get more complex, Amazon's DSP can be a great platform to grow into. Or if you have some of these unique items like importing first party data. So this is like, I've got a mailing list of 50,000 people. I can import that into Amazon's DSP. And now I can build other stuff like lookalike audiences based off of that. And so there's a lot more control that comes with Amazon's DSP, which is really cool. With that comes complexity. And then with that, if you want to go through Amazon, comes that minimum spend threshold that you had to hit. Amazon's documents outline like if you don't want to try to meet that minimum spend threshold from the start, but you want to get into Amazon DSP, you can go through different providers like us. But there's many others out there that support the platform too. And so key thing is, all right, self-serve, sponsored display, it's going to have a lot of the base capabilities. It's very easy to use. Amazon's DSP, much more complex to use, but a lot more control overall.
Yeah, totally. So going back to audiences, with that kind of keeping that theme in mind, there's a lot more complexity that's available within Amazon DSP. And so although there is overlap with core audiences and then some additional segments via DSP,
Yeah.
I think the biggest advantage in terms of targeting that makes things a little bit more complex is the ability to add layers, inclusions, exclusions, basically separated by strings of ands, ors, any's, or alls. So you can cultivate or curate this really fine-tuned audience identity that you want to reach with your ads.
Sure.
By including several audiences together, including exclusions. That's confusing. Yeah, so you can say people that haven't viewed my product pages or haven't purchased from my brand thus far to like really try and reach new to brand shoppers.
Sure.
Or yeah, hone in a lot more. You want to add some more color there? That was rough.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. If you know who your core like avatar is for your customer, it's really easy to build that out in Amazon's DSP because you can layer all these different audiences together. So whether it's demographics or geographic location or interests, or if we get into more detail, like I'll take my first party list and I'll try to define lookalike audiences, and then I can see other Amazon audiences that kind of fit within that. Like, okay, cool. Like a lot of people on my mailing list also fit into this audience, which is people interested in the outdoors, and maybe this overlaps with my running gear company. Things like that is really fun to dig into, and then you can start layering these audiences on top of each other to get more fine-tuned, to make sure that your ads are reaching the right people. Because that kind of takes us into another piece. Like with Amazon's DSP, it's based on a cost per impression model, so CPM. And so the cost per impression model, you want to make sure you're showing your ads to the right people, because anytime that this ad is shown, you're going to pay for it. And so what Amazon's DSP allows you to do is find that audience that's going to resonate the best with your ads and make sure you're showing them to the right people. So this layering allows us to do that. And it's really fun from the advertising side because you can get very fine-tuned and then see which audiences perform the best and then utilize that information and kind of double down on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So walk through sponsored display. How's the bidding, how's the pricing work for sponsored display?
Sure. Yeah. So sponsored display, there's two different pricing models. You can select a CPC basis, which is a lot like other sponsored ad types where you're billed on a cost per click basis. You only pay when somebody clicks the ad.
And these would be like the product targeting ads that we talked about at the beginning.
Yep,
So
exactly.
again, this is another way why they perform a lot like, say, sponsored product ads. You click on them, you pay per click. Conversion rates tend to be decently similar. They purchase after the fact. You get, your certain ACOS or ROAS from that tends to be very comparable to like sponsored products.
Exactly, yeah. And then the other billing model is VCPM. So CPM is cost per mil. You're paying per 1,000 impressions. That's how you pay via DSP. One caveat is you can pay per viewable mill with sponsored display. So not every impression that your display ads serve are going to be viewable. You go to weather.com and you never scroll down. There are going to be ads that are immediately viewable at the top of the fold, when you load the screen. There are going to be ads that also load at the bottom of the page or midway through the page that aren't viewable that you're paying for as well.
Sure.
With a standard CPM model. A VCPM model, you're only paying for those that are viewable.
Yeah, so it's a little bit like higher quality when you're paying for those impressions with sponsored display. So it gives you a little bit more control there. A piece where you can't control is, especially if you're targeting different third party, like off Amazon sites. So we can do this with both sponsored display and Amazon's DSP. And so Amazon has this big third party network where you can show ads just on areas like weather.com. That's always my go-to, and I can usually find Amazon DSP or Amazon sponsored display ads. One other area of control you have with Amazon's DSP is you can exclude certain areas where you don't want your ads to show up. With sponsored display, you do not have that control. So it's more just like show them off the web. But one nice thing is that you're billed on a viewable cost per mil model. So you do have a little bit more control, I would guess. Not really control, but a little bit higher quality for what you're paying.
Yeah, it depends on the depths that you're going with your DSP campaigns in terms of quality.
Sure.
So we build out block lists or exclusion lists where we don't serve impressions to low quality sites. We're constantly pulling individual domains and apps into these aggregated inventory reports, looking at VCPM and then a variety of other engagement and conversion metrics to figure out, all right, is this translating for strategy across our client mix, and then weeding out inventory.
Sure.
And then you can also build inclusion lists where you're only reaching like the premier inventory that you want to target that may be more contextually relevant. So SD, you can't control inventory. You can't control where your ad serves on these external websites, right? It's just wide open Amazon and then Amazon Publisher Services and so on.
Yeah.
DSP, you can control it via inclusions, exclusions, and then including or excluding broader categories called supply sources. So there's a lot of advantages to that. Like in terms of like high quality, I would definitely lean towards DSP because you can build inclusion lists that are contextually relevant.
Sure.
So rather than reaching everything, you can reach, like for the running example, there's tons of running content, exercise content, health content all around the web, and reaching just that, it's additive to the content when you're served a display ad that's really contextually relevant.
Sure.
Really increases the likelihood of engagement and conversion after the fact. So, yeah, like the viewability, the fact that you're paying on a viewable basis is nice because you're not throwing away spend at not viewable impressions. But DSP, you can really curate your inventory to a much higher degree.
Sure.
And then you can also set minimum viewability settings within DSP. So I need my impressions to be minimum 80% viewable. That's an option. And that weeds out the really low quality websites. You can even use like third party, like Oracle or double verify third-party controls where like the ad has to be displayed for minimum 5 seconds, minimum 10 seconds.
Sure.
So you can get really premium spots too on top of like curating inventory. So
Yeah.
it's complex.
Yep.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Out of the box with the viewable cost per mil for a sponsored display, a little bit better just in terms of quality if you didn't have any of those other controls that
Yeah.
we put in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Who wants to pay for an impression that is never seen? Like,
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So, no, I like that. Another area, so creative. Sponsored display. So if we look at sponsored display controls, like major thing that we have there, we've got an image or a video that you can show. So there's been more control that we've got over time for creatives for sponsored display. Main thing, you can kind of change your title. You can add in some custom images into the display ad with sponsored display. You can now go to two different landing pages, whether it's the product detail page or Amazon stores. So that's a cool newer feature to be able to go to stores. Um, but at the same time, like most other things, we have more control with Amazon's DSP and what we can include within our ads itself.
Yeah, yeah. So DSP, very similar to sponsored display, they have a responsive e-commerce creative type, which is dynamic and fairly automated. It fits Amazon's template. It can be customized a little bit more with custom images. You can also select or deselect different creative sizes. So all of the like different creative sizes perform very differently across the web. And that gives you another element of control. But I think the main difference is the ability to use truly custom creatives with Amazon DSP.
Sure.
So if you're running ads through another display network like DV360 or Facebook or Insta, like you can use creatives that look very, you can use those creatives via Amazon DSP. So truly custom creatives that you build out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And one other piece that's not usually covered in the comparison between the two, but I think is becoming more and more important is with Amazon's DSP. Once you're running Amazon's DSP, you also get access to Amazon's Marketing Cloud. And so right now, the current requirement to get access to Amazon Marketing Cloud is to have Amazon DSP ads running. Key benefits for Amazon Marketing Cloud, we've covered this in previous episodes, but there's just a ton of data that you can get, whether it's new to brand, customer journey, overlap reports, lifetime data. Now that they're actually backfilling data too, it helps to get a lot of information really quick within Amazon Marketing Cloud. So there's a ton of power there to be able to link together some of these upper funnel campaigns to all the way down to the sale. And so if you're looking for access to Amazon Marketing Cloud, you've heard a lot about it. There's certain data points that you really want to get. Getting linked up with Amazon's DSP is a great way to go. Again, if you don't want to commit that huge budget, I would go through a provider for that. And then you can get access and start getting those AMC, those Amazon Marketing Cloud insights, which can be really helpful depending on what your ad goals are.
Yeah, great for measurement too.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, what you can do with Amazon Marketing Cloud there.
Yeah, so Amazon Marketing Cloud is a data clean room. You write queries and it spits out different results. It joins tons of data across Amazon that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. It's how you can calculate lifetime value, a metric that isn't given to you, but definitely should within Amazon. Along with a whole host of other metrics like sponsored products, new to brand. Anyways, you write these queries and basically you can activate, it narrows it down to user behavior. So like those that have been exposed to sponsored product impressions would be a good example.
Sure.
Those that have been served a sponsored product impression but haven't like completed a purchase, let's say. We can target those by writing a query for those that have been served an impression from this list of campaigns but have not ordered a product from our brand yet. You can then activate that group of people as an audience within Amazon DSP and target it. So it's like an incredibly flexible audience identity builder that you can utilize. I guess the easiest example for an AMC audience that we use a ton would be cart abandonment. So we can write a query for users that have added the product to the cart but have not completed purchase. And then we activate that and can target it in DSP and reach cart abandoners or those that haven't bought yet but have added to cart.
Yeah. So lots of capabilities there. And what the cool thing is there is you can build all these custom audiences based off of different interactions with your ads or product detail pages or different things like that. And so you can build out these really customized audiences to then target with Amazon's DSP. So it just allows you, again, another whole level of control. So if we look at the two platforms in general, they do share a lot of similarities. Look at sponsored display as a way to start really testing some of these options and build it up. If you really love controlling ads yourself, like sponsored display, a really good self-service product there. If you're starting to really expand your advertising, especially on the upper funnel side, moving to Amazon's DSP is going to give you a lot more control overall, and be able to harness all the same data and sources and everything that the inventory that sponsored display has. So two different products kind of doing the same thing, and just think of it as kind of like, this the easy to use entry model on the sponsored display side, and then the much more complex but more control driven sponsor or Amazon DSP model. So any other things to add before we go?
I think that covers it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, sweet. Well, again, as always, we really appreciate you listening to this episode of the Ad Project Podcast. If you like videos, we're starting to put out a lot more video content. Feel free to search for us on Ad Advance, on YouTube. So lots of good stuff there, different walkthroughs. We'll be continually putting out more and more videos. So check us out there, follow us there. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, we'll see you on the next episode of the Ad Project Podcast.